Hey guys, back at it in Unit 13. This is Section 13.4, Nazi fascism under Adolf Hitler. So a couple things that we'll have to do. First of all, what is fascism, and then how did that take appearance under Hitler's direction? So this is in very many ways a companion piece with Section 13.3 because they are both describing these totalitarian societies which build under these two dictators. So first of all, what is fascism? It is it's a simple definition, but it's something that maybe sometimes is hard to detect because maybe it's a little indistinguishable with other aspects of society. So first of all, fascism is the combination of militarism and an extreme aggressive nationalism. You're very militaristic, and then you're not only proud of your country, but you're proud to the point where you like to disparage other cultures and countries as well. It emphasizes complete and total loyalty to the state and obedience to its leader. So the place for individual rights against the government, it has no place because the group is more important than the individual. And that aggressive nationalism feeds an attitude of social Darwinism, meaning that if our country is not strong enough, we will not survive. So you have to be strong in the face of danger and not get chickened out or not get intimidated, but stand up to the opponents that are present around you and punch them in the face and move on. So fascism is a very aggressive, very militaristic, very nationalistic ideology. Very different than Soviet communism for several reasons, and that's what we're going to look at here. So kind of a comparison and a compare and contrast of these two. And I want to note, let me get my little pen out here. I want to note this part down here. At their heart, communism and fascism are both anti-democratic. Democracy and individual rights, aka liberalism, have no place in a communist or fascist, a Soviet communist or fascist society. You're not going to see it at all. So keep that in mind. And you can see kind of the subtle differences there below, but I want to look at the, let's see, can I point like a weatherman? You can't really get it to work. Okay, so what if my finger could go out of the screen and come down? Here it goes. Let's see. Okay. Equality. Everybody equal in a communist government. Everybody is giving of what they have to the government. But in a fascist society, people are unequal, but we're all united by our nationality or ethnicity. If you watch The Wave, think about Robert and other kids. Sure, they're still unequal, but there is respect between one another because they are brought together by their participation in The Wave, right? So here, people at fascism, just in general, are united by either their nationality or their ethnicity. Ethnicity is probably more of a racial thing, and that's going to get us into Nazism. Communism, no private property. You don't own that, right? The government owns it. Fascism, you own it, but it has to be used in such a way that it helps the state. Communism, there is no place for a nationalized idea or nationalism in a communist society because it's all about the workers rising up against those with power and money, the bourgeoisie. So it's an international ideology. Workers of all nations are in common cause against the capitalists, right? The ones with money. Whereas with fascism, it's all nationalistic, right? It is you against everybody else. Your identity is through your participation in the nation. So they're very different. However, they are both totalitarian, where the government controls all aspects of society, and they are both anti-democratic and also promote violence. So they're very much in democracy or anti-democratic and very much encouraging kind of a violent tendency. So that is what we see in terms of the difference between communism and fascism. And knowing that going forward, we start to see fascism grow in Europe after World War I. Now, here's one of the keys of fascism. And I'm going to see if I can write this good because it's a phrase. Arises out of crisis. Now, to be fair, that also compares or is the same there with Soviet communism, is that fascism doesn't appear out of good times. Fascism and communism are extreme political movements on one side, at different sides of the ledger, but they arise when things are bad because people are like, let's consider other alternatives. Let's consider other ways of doing society because the current one sucks. And that is where you see fascism grow after World War I because of the struggles that Europe had post-World War I. And you had the rise of fascism first in Italy and a man named Benito Mussolini. Mussolini is a newspaper journalist, and he gets political after the war and rises in the fascist party, becomes very popular in it, and is preaching to his followers and the Italian people that if we don't change where we're going, the commies are coming, right? The fear of communism, the fear of the other side, that the government's going to come in and take all your stuff, right? And you'll be equal to everybody else and no chance to like rise up in society. And the reason why those fears are exploiting, those fears worked, is that things were really bad in Italy post. I just spit on the screen. Oh, that's where so you can see like where on the screen I spit because I just tried to like, there we go, got rid of it. And I gave my own blood. There. But the economy is bad, right? And also Italy feels like they were kind of screwed over in the Treaty of Versailles, that they didn't get what they deserved, maybe some land or things like that. So Mussolini sells the fears of communism, but he also sells the idea that under him and the fascists that Italy can return to become the new and another Roman Empire, like way back in the day. He didn't get some of that Renaissance juju back, right? Because Italy's kind of sucked for a long time. We really haven't talked about them at all. Turn the lights on. Nope, didn't really work. So like things are not great, and Mussolini is trying to sell that. And in order to consolidate his rule, because the King of Italy gives him permission to form a government in 1922, he uses his black shirts, or his basically thuggish paramilitary force, to threaten and terrorize opponents in Rome. So if you stand up and speak against the fascist party and Il Duce, right, Il Duce, which is Mussolini, the leader, then you may be threatened, terrorized, aka the Gestapo or the brown shirts in Nazi Germany, so or the NKVD or eventually KGB in Soviet Union. So it's very much a, hey, if this is happening now, you're going to have to get on board and get on the train. And there's Mussolini looking at the blood that I spilt. Blech. Okay, so kind of one of the things though that Mussolini does that's very successful is that he establishes basically a peace treaty with the Catholic Church, in saying that, listen, you have been at odds with the Italian government since the year 1870, and that's the year that the Italian government consolidated into one country. So hey, let's make peace, right? Because that's going to get a lot of people liking me if I do that. So the latter impact is a peace deal between the church and the Italian government, in which the Vatican City, which is where the church was, a very small bit of Rome, got its sovereignty and a promise that the Italian government would never conquer it or never invade. And the church recognizes the legitimacy of the Italian government because they never said, hey, this is a legit government. So it's kind of a deal where one gets one thing, one gets the other. And then it really boosts the popularity of Mussolini's government, because now the poor conservative peasants who are very Catholic are going to be like, you know what, this is pretty cool that our government and our church are now like, maybe not working together, but like aren't sending each to like hell or whatever. So yeah, that'd be bad. But again, Mussolini's kind of building up this fascist government, very nationalistic, very militaristic, but it is growing in popularity, and to be fair, helps the Italian economy. Now let's switch gears. We're going to go to the Nazi Party. So what's important to understand about Nazism is that it is a fascist movement. But if you're a fascist, it doesn't mean that you're Nazi. But if you're a Nazi, you're fascist. I mean, there's going to be militarism, there's going to be nationalism in there, and there's also, with Nazism, there's the racial component. The belief that the Aryan race is superior. Well, maybe not necessarily the Aryan race, A-R-Y-A-N, the German race, but your race, as it may look now, neo-Nazi movements, white supremacists. There is a racial pecking order, let's say. That's what you kind of see out of these groups now. But in any case, the original group it's very much the Germans, right? And we'll get to that, but there's a racial component to it. This is a radical movement, and it very much contrasts with the ruling Social Democratic Party in the Reichstag. We're talking here the Weimar Republic, right? This is a political party that becomes popular right after World War I for reasons why we talked about with Italy, economic troubles, being hurt by the Treaty of Versailles. It gets very popular during the hyperinflation crisis as an alternative way of structuring society. But when the Beer Hall Putsch fails, remember Hitler's failed rebellion, when the economy improves thanks to the Dawes Plan, the spirit of Locarno, the Nazi Party kind of falls a little bit. But then after the Great Depression crushes the German economy again, now the Nazi Party rises once more. So with that in mind, the Nazi Party is up when Germany is down, during the Weimar Republic. When the Nazi Party is up, that means the German country or spirit is down because the Nazi Party and fascism is an alternative way of structuring society. So let's get down to brass tacks and talk about Adolf Hitler a little bit. What did he believe? What was his core ideology? Well, it's really basically written down. It's all in the book, right? Mein Kampf, My Struggle, written while he is in prison due to the Beer Hall Putsch. And it's pretty simple. Germans should expand east. They need more elbow room. Get those bows out, get you some more territory. Germans need what's called Lebensraum. Lebensraum is a German term for living space. They need more living space. And his belief is that the Germans should add territory to the east. The Aryan race are the master race, that the Jewish people, anti-Semitic feelings here, the Jewish people had been, or maybe not people, but financiers who were Jewish, bankers and the like, in high commerce, had manipulated the Treaty of Versailles, had secretly profited in those economic problems while the rest of the Germans are starving and have no bread. And he saw that there was great harm in that, and that the Jewish people were inherently different, even though they had been maybe German for generations, or at least lived in Germany for generations, and had accepted German sovereignty of the German government, that they had power. But Hitler saw them as the other, right? Instead, they're very different, in that if in charge, the Fuhrer, the leader, would have unlimited power, and supposedly he would be the one, right? That would basically lead the charge. So, and be in charge to do whatever he felt necessary to these minority groups that he felt were taking away from the solidarity of the German people. So, with that in mind, he goes to jail. 9 months, comes out, and then the Nazi Party begins to rebuild. Here's some more of his kind of ideology. Not so much more here than we know. You can see the German-speaking people, and then the country, the country border of what Germany was post-Versailles, and then all this other stuff right here. These are like Germans, right? They speak German, including the Austrians, right? But he felt that Germany even needed to expand more to the east. So all these things are the ideology of Hitler. So again, when Germany's better, the Nazis are not as well off. So, the hyperinflation happens and they become popular, and then they try to take over the government, and that fails. But then the spirit of Locarno, the Dawes Act, Germany's accepted by the European community again. The economy's improving through the 20s. The Nazis are very much marginalized until the Great Depression. And that's when people start looking for other solutions, right? Because things are so bad because of the Great Depression. With the debt that they still have to pay the reparations. The loans from America stopped. So it is just a bad scene. And by 1933, the Nazis have become the most powerful party in the Reichstag. They are the ones that are holding the cards. And Hitler has immense popularity as leader of the Nazi Party, but yet he still does not have the power, right? He's just kind of the leader of the party at this point. So what happens? Where are we going now? Hitler in power. How does he get from that spot to der Führer, unlimited power. Well, the president of Germany at the time, and again, there's a video I posted on YouTube that we watched in class that explains this process well, so check it out. Hitler's rise to power from Simple History. But Hitler is named chancellor in 1933 by the president, who looks to use Hitler's popularity to his benefit. The chancellor is basically vice president. You're the number one in the legislature of the Reichstag, and you kind of command and control what legislation comes to be voted on. Hitler wants a majority, though, of Nazis in the Reichstag, because then he can basically pass whatever he wants. So he sought a Nazi majority, and about a week before the new elections, the Reichstag burns down. And a communist is caught and blamed, and Hitler, Dutch communist, and Hitler is blaming the Communist Party for leading that. And he says, look at the commies, right? They're looking. It's what Mussolini did, remember? The Communist Party, they're trying to take over. Vote Nazi. And they don't get their majority per se in the elections, but they get close enough that Hitler can use his thuggish brown shirts to intimidate and scare people into voting his way. And in 1934, the Enabling Act is passed, which gives the chancellor basically unlimited dictatorial powers to solve the economic crises and political crises that exist in Germany due to the Depression. And this is the changing point, because now Hitler can pass any legislation he wants. He passes a bill that outlaws all political parties. He restricts freedom of speech and press. He creates a new court which swears its loyalty to Hitler. He makes the military swear its loyalty to himself. And again, that video kind of shows that process really well. And through this, Hitler establishes what he's called the Third Reich, the Third Empire of Nazi Germany. And again, that video, check it out, because it's extremely good in showing the process that Hitler takes to take control. Now, how does he get things better, right? Because, you know, he's in charge, but like, what does he do to get people to like him? Part of that is going to be like having economic growth. So really two things here. And you can see the results, right? One, a large public works program. He's going to build bridges and roads, including a system of roads in Germany today called the Autobahn, right? Which is most well known because in parts of it there is no speed limit. So that's going to improve trade as you can move things from point A to point B better. It's also going to give people jobs in constructing the Autobahn. But here's the key. Massive rearmament. He's going to open new factories which will produce weapons. And you're like, well, that's not legal, the Treaty of Versailles. I mean, who's going to enforce it, right? And that's what Hitler's banking on, is that if he builds these things, they're in secret, right? He's not openly broadcasting, I'm building weapons. Well, I put a sock on my hand. How about that? Anyway, he's basically going to build them in secret and then hope nobody in the League of Nations or anyone else finds out. And if they do, hey, let them come in here and stop. We'll see what happens. So this means a lot of jobs. It also means confidence for the German people because they're getting their mojo back, right? Or they're building up their army. This is like awesome. We love this. Okay? But he also works on the hearts and minds of the German people. Censorship, indoctrination, terror. Censorship in terms of book burning and burning books, Voltaire, Rousseau, Locke, Renaissance works, anything that goes against Christian and Jewish literature, anything that goes against the Nazi ideology, he will have burned. And these are like group events, right? This is a community group activity, these book burning things. Here they are here. Indoctrination, forcing teenagers to join the Hitler Youth as a way to teach them Nazi ideology at an after-school time. Rallies and parades, propaganda, gender roles, telling women that you have to become mothers of baby Nazis, right? Make Nazis, that's your role. Men, be physical, be militaristic, be tough, so that when the day comes that we are at war, that you will be tough enough to fight for your country and for your Fuhrer. And then if you don't behave, there will be penalties. And that is such a big story of Nazi Germany, and we'll get into the unfortunate part of it all of it's unfortunate, but the most unfortunate part of it a little bit later. Now, propaganda, like I mentioned, it's enforcing the gender roles, it's enforcing Hitler's dominance, and as the quote-unquote savior of the German nation, the light coming down from heaven on him. It's very similar to a godlike figure, right? Showing the importance of German industry over the Jewish financiers, the gender roles here, and the physical nature of the way people are supposed to look and act, and looking toward the future, and the future looks a lot like Hitler. So the propaganda is fashioned by a man named Joseph Goebbels, who is the minister of propaganda in Nazi Germany, and really has a hand in all of these things. So that is it for Nazi Germany. It is not a very cheery topic, but we're going to see it at work in World War II. And again, ton of YouTube documentaries out there that you can check out. I'm not linking a couple on the Hitler Youth that I find are interesting, because if you're kind of interested in it, again, don't let the parameters of our class, which we only spend like 2.5 days on Nazi Germany, go find it for yourself. There's never been a better time in our species history, I guess world history, but there's never been a better time for you to do more independent study because of the amount of access that you have to different material. So just remember that, and when I come back, we'll fight World War II. Bye-bye.